like I said, the first speech that will be done by both teams consecutively, so you won't be doing it together, is one after the other. No interruptions. Everybody gets to talk, or whoever's in your team gets to talk for 4 minutes. After we have the first constructive, we move on to the first crossfire. Now, both of you guys talk at this time, and you take turns asking questions. So if the pro team went first, then they will get to ask the first question, and they'll say, hey, we have a question, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? And then you hear the response. Don't let the same team, pro team, ask you follow-up questions and build onto the first one and spend all the time. You don't want to let them do that. Once you've answered their question, then you say, hey, we have a question for you. Can we ask you one? Okay? Now, if the other team says, no, you may not ask a question, and we're just going to continue asking questions, is that a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think?
Bad thing.
Why is that a bad thing?
Because you're trying not to not hear their opinion.
And what is it going against? The one word that I care about.
Respect.
Respect. You're not respecting the other team if you're not ready to take their question. They deserve a question. You ask them a question. Why can't they give you one? So you take a question from the other side, you answer it, and once you think you're done with that, then you can say, we've answered your question. We would like to ask you one of our own. And then the other team will be like, okay, what's your question? And you talk to each other back and forth, 8 minutes. And after you're done, you move on to the second constructive, the back end speech. And this is where you continue, you build upon what was talked about in the front end and the first crossfire, but this is your last chance to introduce new material, new arguments, anything new that wasn't said before. This is the last chance. The back end speech is the last chance for you to bring them up. Okay, does that make sense? And once you talk about those and you are talking or responding to anything that the other team said, the other team is going to have a go at your arguments. They're going to, pick holes in it and show weaknesses. And you're going to say, I understand where you're coming from, but we still think that this argument is good for these reasons. And you're properly defending all the attacks coming at you, but at the same time, you're trying to poke holes at the other team's arguments. All this happens in the back end, 4 minutes each, no interruptions. Nobody's going to cut you off. And then after you're done, we have the second crossfire. Same thing goes. Whoever went first will ask the first question. After you answer, you say, can we ask you a question? And then you move on. Go back and forth, 8 minutes. And then the last summary speech is you cannot introduce any new information, even on the second crossfire. You cannot introduce any new information. The last opportunity for you to introduce new information is during the back end speech. After this, no new information. So the summary speech literally should be summarizing the highlights, the key points of the entire round, obviously arguing for your team's sake. So, you have to argue for the pro side if you're on the pro team. You don't want to root for the other side, obviously. But what's important, and I'm going to look at this and I'm going to put emphasis on this, I'm going to see which team does this better, is identifying clashes. Anything that you said and the other team said, and they're contradicting each other, or they're clashing, they're in conflict. All of those are clashes. And you have to list all of the clashes and why your team comes out on top. You have to explain to the audience, in this case it's me, but I'm recording it, so your parents are going to see it. Whoever's watching this debate round and has to give an honest assessment on which team won, you're going to have to explain to the judges and anybody watching this, hey, these were the clashes that both teams were struggling with throughout the entire debate round. Item number 1, 2, and 3, whatever. And of the clashes, we come out on top because they were not able to do this, or we came up with a good solution to that, or we had a good response to it, but they were not able to answer our questions, or they were not able to address this issue. For whatever reason, our team did a better job in addressing these clashes. That has to be the main thrust of the summary speech. So it's important to take good notes. Obviously, I'm going to be typing them up for you so that you can look at it, but you need to have your own internal notes and say, this is what we want to focus on, especially during the summary speech. Does that make sense? Everybody good so far?